These ancient stones are so massive, modern cranes can't lift them, but someone did, thousands of years ago. In the ruins of Baalbek in modern-day Lebanon, there's a platform built from 3 gigantic stones called the Trilithon. Each block is more than 20 meters long and weighs over 800 tons.
That is 3 fully loaded Boeing 747s compressed into one block.
Mysterious megalithic stone structures are found all around the world, weighing up to 200 tons each, and fitted so precisely that they appear cut by lasers. Were these built by thousands of men or by the giants before the flood?
Forget the pyramids. This is the real impossible structure. Sacsayhuaman, 12,000 feet high in the Andes of Peru. Blocks weighing 200 tons, stacked like effortless toys. But the nightmare is in the details. Look closer. No mortar used, just terrifyingly perfect precision. The stones are not square. They are complex 3D puzzles, shaped with precision and intent rather than random breaks. The stones are not square. They are complex 3D puzzles. They lock together so tightly they survive any earthquake. Modern engineers cannot replicate this with diamond saws. The quarry was miles away, no wheels, no iron tools. Did they melt the stone, or use sound-based technology we still don't fully understand? Another proof that our history books are incomplete.
This video from India has gone viral. It's all about the fact that visitors to the temple of Virabhadra noticed a column that does not touch the ground and as if floating in the air, and some people still believe that this column is the lost technology of anti-gravity of ancient people. But in Indian temples, the main mystery are these mysterious mechanisms and their processing, which clearly makes it clear that the ancient people had a technology of laser processing. For example, the author of this video from India claims that he has the secret of his ancestors and knows how these temples were created. Just look at how magnificent and intricate this machining is. And this beauty, which you see on your screens, is called the Kailash Temple, which is located in India. And its main feature is that it is the most gigantic structure in the world carved from a single piece of stone that is without the right to make a mistake.
If you're going to start anywhere with temple mysteries, you have to start with India. India has the craziest architecture you will ever see. Half the stuff in the temples spin if they don't float. The pillars in these temples look exactly like the sound wave in 3D. That one's iron. It hasn't rusted in 2,300 years. They carved them into mountains and then out of mountains. You can't make a mistake. You have one shot at it. When they're done carving, they put the finest details head to toe in the entire temple. It's everywhere. You cannot get all the details even if you tried. Look at this. That's a mandala made out of a snake tail. It's all one tail. That elephant is not an elephant. It's made out of people. That stone is made out of one solid rock. It moves. It's a chain now. They put a rock ball of one stone inside a carving of a different type of stone. It's one piece. How'd they get the rock ball in there? They built pyramids like Egypt and Mexico, and then they inverted it into the ground. Then when they got bored of that, they inverted one of their own temples and built that into the ground. Some of the features inside the temple look like modern technology today. 7 years of research, I've never seen anything like this before. This is a motor that cells use to move around. You have trillions of them in you right now. That is the top of a column in a Hindu temple. The level of detail and craftsmanship is one thing, but there's a level of geometric and engineering knowledge that is closer to what we see in aircraft manufacturing. That turbine and the biomotor both do the same thing so that an airplane and bacteria can move. If this isn't depicting the same thing, you're gonna have to explain to me where the design inspiration came from that coupler and the little stator guy right here. No way they could see these things. These things are complex molecular parts that are assembled and held together by electrons and run on electricity so bacteria can move. This little guy is what gets me though. He's like a little clutch that engages the molecules so it can spin. That's not what that is. Run it back. In the little animation, you know what you see when you look straight up into that motor? You see this thing right here. If you look straight up in one of these temples, guess what you see? There's a pile of coincidences and then there's a pile of explanations, and this pile is getting quite large. Last one. Let's go. Computers, they work using crystals. That is correct. When you rub two crystals together, they give off a pulse of energy. It looks kind of like this. It's called piezoelectricity. It's used for clock speed. Computers take that signal and they convert it into binary. That number right there is how fast it can do math using a crystal trapped in a metal box. The box is airtight. It's called hermetically sealing from the god Hermes, who's actually Thoth. Perfect example would be these giant granite boxes in Saqqara, Egypt. The crystal signal goes into a pulse generator, which does a couple of these and turns it into a square wave. That makes ones and zeros. When you sync it with the whole computer, it can do operations like math. So what do the squares do? These are like remembering a phone number someone told you real quick. This does all the math. These tell that answer where to go, like your display. Or you can hold on to it for later, like that phone number you'll never use. That was just this part of the brain. These little guys on our cartoon connect to everything else in the computer. Squiggly around the edge is the data bus. It's how these components talk to each other. If you can't tell by now, the computer processor is Viracocha, the deity of the ancient Peruvians. The very same people that built these impossibly large walls, terraformed an entire continent, while creating and cultivating the Amazon rainforest by hand. The processor isn't actually a processor either. It is my favorite ancient ruin to say Pakiakta. They built Pakiakta on a hilly terrain, but when viewed from above, it has perfect geometry. Now, how would you do that without leveling it first? There are almost no windows, very few doors, and very small hallways. You have to see this. The builders of this place took a math equation that literally transforms vibration, it's called the Fourier transform, and turned it into a building. Don't believe me? I'll prove it to you. This is a synthesizer. I use it to make wubs. Those are wubs. Chichen Itza takes a sine wave and turns it into a square wave. You increase the semitones, or the pitch, by the same amount of levels in Chichen Itza. How about visually? Cymatic patterns show sound through a metal plate. They have an equation that can be converted into something that we can use to simulate those patterns. The peaks and the valleys show the shape of the sound. Other than making really cool graphics, we can also use this to reveal some hidden architecture and some really old stuff like Borobudur. The architecture is a mirror of the frequency. As we move up in frequency, the patterns get smoother and more complex. And within 100 hertz of that frequency that I just played, you get the architecture of Chichen Itza. Sonically and mathematically. Square waves are binary. You know what else is binary? Biology. If we use a pyramid to illustrate the sequence of biology, you get the binary sequence counting downwards. Counting diagonally, you get the golden ratio that links everything together proportionately. So how would this work? Well, you would take a seed and you would put it up in this chamber, which is exactly what the Mayans did, and then you'd wait till the feathered serpent returns to the ground. At this point, water does the rest of the heavy lifting, having the uncanny ability to reflect the flowers and fruits of which the products are. And if you're still skeptical, just remember that the most biodiverse region on the planet has the highest concentration of pyramids on the planet. This is temple technology, and I am Baseforge, and this is not the only example.
pyramids were some type of a power plant.
Yes, not all the pyramids, some of them. So the Great Pyramid at Giza, for sure, a wireless power plant. It was also a communications device. So if you look at old images or old pictures of the Great Pyramid area at Giza, you'll see that the Nile used to run right up alongside of those pyramids. The water would run underneath in these gigantic aquifers. When you have running water underneath magnetized crystal granite, which is what the base is made out of, you create something called physiostatic electricity. Then those ions rush up into Grand Gallery area, and there were these resonating rods going up the Grand Gallery to the King's Chamber. And when they got into the King's Chamber, it's surrounded by thousands of tons of magnetized crystal granite. Then the energy would shoot up through the apex. The obelisk captured the ambient electricity from the pyramid, and by that method, they were able to transmit the wireless energy all around the region, and they can power whatever.
The biggest cymatic pattern ever made is a temple. This is Borobudur. It is in Indonesia. I always thought this temple was super weird because it's perfectly geometric except for the circles in the middle of the temple. They're not quite perfect. The rest of the geometry, my last video, I showed you the simulation of the Chladni patterns. If you put sand on a plate and you play sound through it, it creates geometric shapes. But if you freeze the simulation right here, yep, it's perfect. They're not perfect circles because of the frequency. Each of the bells is a focal point for the frequency. That's why those circles are not perfect, except for the central one. Borobudur itself is a giant bell. There's nothing inside of it. The temple, you can't go in there. There's no chambers. Built on top of a mound. It should be quite obvious now that this is used to focus something. And here's how deep the Buddhist knowledge actually goes. This is called laser interferography. We shoot a laser of one frequency and split it into two frequencies and then bounce it off a mirror. And if we move those mirrors, the pattern the laser makes can be used to measure very small distances. When the waves sync up, they make a focal point, that red wave. When they're offset, it creates interference or a gap where the red line isn't there. When you measure that on a detector, it looks like this. The evidence for ancient technology is not going to be found near these temples. It's going to be the temple. This is Angkor Wat, and this is a CMOS sensor. Any digital camera will have one of these. That's Angkor Wat from above. What does a CMOS sensor do? It takes in light and converts that light to electrical signal. Why would ancients want to do that? To make that signal usable, we use something called a high-frequency oscillator. These create stable frequencies with no moving parts. They're used in everything. Should be no surprise at this point, the geometry of that oscillator is 4 resonators around one central resonator. Tesla uses these, which could be confused with ancient Peruvian architecture if you follow me. All resonators work by using cavities to excite and amplify a desired frequency in the center. Let's say we cut Angkor like that in half. I feel like it'd probably look a lot like that guy. Picked a great day to watch Base Forge. I'm full sending this one. You see that forested area conspicuously covered with trees? They scanned it with a laser on a drone to see what's underneath the trees. You know what they found?
What the hell is even that?
The acoustic waveguide for our oscillator happens to look just like that. If you watch the Prambanan video, you know that the interior of these temples looks just like a corrugated horn antenna. Those peaks are not decorative. They focus the signal as it exits the cone. This minimizes power loss and strengthens the signal. A phased array arrangement. I'm going to say it. I think we're getting stupider. In this 500-year-old cathedral, on the ceiling is one of the craziest things that you will ever see. This is the Rosslyn Chapel. It's in Scotland. Some of the crispiest stonework you're ever going to see, but these are really the point of interest. You may recognize the upside-down spires from Hindu temples. That is because they're communicating the same thing across the world. The speaker cone design of the ceiling is reinforced by the waveform pillars that sits on. At the top of the pillars in Rosslyn, there are angels playing instruments. Now, as you follow the pillar up, you'll see the little nubs. Each one of those is a cube, and on each one of those cubes is a folded up cymatic pattern. As you go up the archway, those cubes form notes and chords. This was discovered by a Royal Air Force codebreaker, Thomas Mitchell. Him and his son decoded this, translated it into music, and recreated a 500-year-old song. We really don't see attention to detail like this any longer. That's because when the church was bankrolling these things, the alchemists and masons built them. But since very few people were educated, they spoke a language of...
The ancients were far more advanced than what we are led to believe. Glass-stained windows were not just for decoration. This was a form of technology. The architects understood that the sun is a source of electromagnetic radiation. The sun's rays are a form of vibration and energy. If you shine light through a geometric pattern, the light that comes out the other end takes the form of that frequency, because each frequency possesses its own geometric pattern. By shining light through a sacred healing geometric pattern, it has healing effects on the human aura, which ultimately heals and regenerates your body. Your body pretty much starts vibrating as the same frequency of the geometric pattern if the light rays are touching you. Plus, the windows contain natural materials such as gold chloride, copper oxide, cobalt oxide, and silver nitrate. These were used to glass stain the windows. Natural materials are very healing for the human body. They vibrate on a natural healing frequency. Therefore, these windows were used to transform the light energy of the sun into a specific frequency to heal the human aura and the body. Each one of these geometric patterns is a different frequency, channeling the light of the sun. The ancients were far more advanced than what we are led to believe.
That is Stonehenge. It's very cool. But what it actually does is going to blow your mind. I learned that this was a seasonal clock, and it is, but you have to look at it from a different lens. This is what sound looks like going through water. This is Stonehenge. It is built on top of an aquifer. So, who else builds their things on top of water? Well, I showed you in the last video that pretty much everybody builds their best stuff on top of water, even Tesla. Light goes through it. Light can melt the hardest things on the planet when focused, and when used for communication, it's the fastest way to do that. It looks like a pattern of sound. Sound travels fastest through solids and can destroy cities if it's a big enough wave. Sound is a bigger wave than light. Sound can move mediums it passes through, like water, and bend the light. That's how we get cymatic images. You can see this in the twinkling of stars as well. Our technology sends ones and zeros through light. Let's pretend everything around us is made of a very unique vibration that can be expressed in a frequency. Or you can grow crops with it. Why should we care about old art when we have the craziest AI that can make these fucking things? Because there's hidden secrets. This one is The Vitruvian Man by Leo da Vinci. I never understood this thing. I thought it looked cool and like proportional and stuff, but it didn't make sense. But I'm about to make it make sense. It has to do with the pyramids. Da Vinci was a Renaissance man. Renaissance means revival of knowledge. Now, revival of knowledge from ancient times is what we're talking about. So if you draw a line straight up to that top of that circle and the corner of the square, you get the angle of the flat side of the pyramid. This technique is not exclusively Da Vinci's though. Shakespeare encoded 12 universal constants on the cover of his sonnets that are also encoded in the pyramid's design. So if you did not know, the pyramids are basically a map of the planet and how it works in the universe. The base is the diameter, and the tip, if you put a circle on the tip, is the relation of the moon to the earth. Now, Da Vinci also encoded this in the Vitruvian Man. If you overlay the two, they line up perfectly. But that's not even the craziest part. The craziest part is Da Vinci knew of all the internal chambers. Those cuts in the Vitruvian Man are exactly where the chambers are inside the pyramid. We just discovered one with the Scan Pyramids project exactly where he said it would be. Pretty crazy. You cannot convince me that this isn't weird. This is the Mandelbrot set. That is a real plant. That's a leaf. The Mandelbrot set is an infinite recurring pattern. We call it a fractal. Now, when you make that fractal 3D, it looks like this. What does that look like? That's a fractal cactus. A fractus. Barnsley fern. Math looks like the real life lady fern. Begonia rex, this is from India. It is a perfect reflection of the Fibonacci sequence. Just like this elephant's trunk, this iguana's tail, these seashells, and all the other organisms that reflect that fractal. These patterns are inside you. When an embryo gets fertilized, that's what happens. Then you start to grow these fractal organs and you feel them in your fractal nervous system, all controlled by your fractal brain reflecting the architecture of the universe, while your outsides reflect the fractal patterns of a tree. When energy discharges into matter, we see fractals at all scales. Your veins and neurons navigate your body like rivers navigate land. Then we use those neurons to build roads. This tree is not real, at least not in the way you think about it. Let me explain. This 3D wave can appear as a ripple or as a 2D wave depending on how we look at it. This is the nature of geometry. This obelisk has a 2D projection, but if we pull it up, we get a 3D shape. DNA is a perfect example. From the top down, it looks like a mandala, but if we pull it up, we get a double helix. DNA is a program for how energy is going to manifest in physical reality. Take cymatics. This is 528 hertz. When we look at it through water, we see the top-down projection right here. That's the shape because sound moves in 3D balls through the air. We just get a really fast cross-section. These geometries are just shadows that our brains can process in this dimension. Now these are going to start to make sense. Architecture is frozen sound. They're meant to transmit this information without words because you already speak this language. Geometry is universal. Through the frozen sound of architecture and the liquid geometry of sound, these buildings can transmit information without you even knowing it. Just by seeing them, something inside of you goes, these guys know more about a lot of stuff than I know. They're trying to wake up something divine inside of you using the language that everybody knows. It's a lost art. This is insane. This is the exact moment a human egg gets fertilized. Now what you're seeing is a flash of light the moment it gets fertilized. This is a chemical reaction that releases a lot of zinc that seals the outside of the egg so it can't get fertilized by another little guy. What happens next is even more insane. It starts to ripple. The outside of the egg starts to look a lot like the bubble cymatics video that I posted a while back, and it shows that there's fluid motion within that egg. You literally start life vibrating. Cymatic images make some really cool complex patterns, but wait until you see this. This is a top-down image of what DNA looks like as a molecule. The left-hand side of this image is a cymatic pattern. Now look at the spoke symmetry and the circle symmetry. Here's another one. This is B DNA, and the background is a cymatic pattern. Here are all the DNA counterparts from A, B, C, and Z DNA. Now they're not exact, but there's a lot of research coming out that shows that we can modulate gene expression through vibration. It can also increase immunity in plants. Now, if you love this kind of thing, my cymatics course is finally out. It's right here on TikTok. It covers everything from ancient history to its uses to how to set these things up to taking pictures, all of it. There's a free trailer up right now if you want to go check it out. I'm going to tell you a little secret. If I take a dolphin and I slow it down, it sounds like a monkey. If I take a chimpanzee and I speed it up, sounds like a mouse. If I take a mouse, slow it down, it sounds like a seagull. If I take a seagull and slow the seagull down, it sounds like a gorilla or a whale. If I take a whale and we speed the whale up, sounds like birds. Here's some cows. Sped up, they sound like puppies. If we slow crickets down, we're back at birds. Information is transmitted via waves. We can see that, we can hear that. The fundamental is the carrier wave. The harmonics differentiate my voice from a singer. Whales communicate below our hearing, so we have to speed it up to hear it. Our hearing is right here, and above it,
Frickin' bats. I love Halloween.
Frickin' bats and whales and dolphins use higher frequencies to see. They bounce the waves off to get an image. Everything is connected this way. Grizzly bears even sound like humans. Human cells can now be reprogrammed using only sound. We've been using ultrasound to quite literally shatter tumor cells for a while now. If you think of an opera singer shattering a wine glass with their voice, it's the same concept, it's just with cells. These techniques have been used to reduce the size of tumors and shatter cancer cells like leukemia. This research is called sonogenetics, and it can be used to quite literally turn on and off genes. This can be used to treat way different things like Parkinson's or even blindness. Everything has a frequency, even cells. Now the outside of the cell, think of that like a water droplet on a speaker. Different frequencies can make it dance or change shape. Say you want to target something inside the cell, you would need to then know the harmonics. In this example, paint, oil, and water are all mixed. Different frequencies will vibrate the different fluids. You know those frequencies, it allows you to pretty much control them. We have devices like the Simoscope that can measure these frequencies and then show you what they look like. So my question is, were the builders of these aware of this before we were? Nobody knows who really designed them, but we know they had a deep knowledge of acoustics. In every cathedral, there's an ambulatory. That has the same geometry as a human body that we cannot see, but we can control using this guy. And it was so complex that the ancient Egyptians and Tibetans created an entire culture and science around decoding it. So where do we get it? Plants. For example, if a leaf gets cut, then plants can signal to other plants there's imminent danger. Special type of plasma photography can be used to recreate the electric skeleton of the cut leaf. It's called the phantom leaf effect. Every time a cell divides, regions of high energy plasma form around that split boundary, an indicator something is alive, and humans have this skeleton too, which has been used to detect the earliest stages of cancer. How does it work? Each cell has a voltage. Scaffolding in the cell called microtubules can tell the voltage across all the different parts. This tells proteins where to go. These define the cell's geometry the same way your phone defines my geometry. These are the tubes, and you'll notice they connect to other cells. Those tubes are exactly what you see when a cell divides and pulls itself apart into two pieces. When it does that, it creates something called a gap junction. That way the cell can share energy and matter and information. Using a special dye, you can get these channels to light up. Shifts in the membrane voltage will determine if a cell... Nobody is ready for this one. This probably looks familiar. It probably looks like these cymatic patterns that I talk about all the fucking time. And all these things is a petri dish on top of a speaker and a light on top of it, making these cool mandala-like patterns. Now this man made one of them in a 3D design software and took cross sections of it and put different colors to those cross sections. So using a 3D cymatic pattern, this man was able to create a perfect image using sound and light. I want you to sit and really think about this, because this is the code to reality. This is the code to the matrix, or whatever you want to call it. This is how energy interacts with itself to create everything that you see. This is why cymatics and sound is so important. Vibration in general, it's all wave. If the 3D baby got you, then this one is gonna make you cry. So Mr. Petros has done it again and blew my mind. And he's made these things, and they're actually not cymatic patterns. They are essentially mandalas designed in a 3D design software. I don't know what it is, but he does. And he's created these sheets, and all this is the light from that backlight refracting through the colors that he uses as a prism, and it creates this image. Now, I don't know if that girl is the grown-up version of the baby, but what I do know is if we know how to make that cymatic pattern, what frequency it is, and we know what color to use for those, how light to pump in there, then we can create reality. Is this what we've been trying to be told for thousands of years? Were we not ready for that information to be processed until we've developed consciously enough to use it? I don't know, but I will leave you with a question. If all of this is just looking through a prism, then what prism are you looking through reality with?